Shalom, miserable humans. Well, we have now come to recasting for the season that was the beginning of the end for Winx Club Season 4. But we're not here to talk about the quality of the seasons, just who I would cast to voice the characters from beginning to end. However, this season does suck, and so do all the ones that come after. Anyway, let's begin. Starting with the former 7th member of the Winx, before being canned, Roxy. There were quite a few voices I had considered for her, but I ultimately went with an incredibly clever choice that was suggested by my amazing girlfriend. That choice would be Lacey Chabert. While she is known for her role as Gretchen from Mean Girls,
that is so
she is also a voice acting legend that has been a major staple of your childhood. What you will most likely recognize her voice for is as Eliza Thornberry from the Wild Thornberries. I mean, it's just perfect because of how Eliza has the ability to talk to animals and Roxy is an animal fairy. But that's not the only reason why I went with her. I feel like her youthful sound would really work for the character and how she's thrown into this new world of magic that she is completely confused by. Not to mention that she'd be able to show her more spunky and headstrong nature.
I need to know a spell cold, or else have time to prep it. Plus, all magic requires energy, which usually has to come from within. I just can't make the impossible happen at will.
Now we move on to the Wizards of the Black Circle, the villains of the season, starting with their leader, Ogron. I have to go back to his Cinnaloom voice, Terrence Scammell. This will come as a surprise to some people given my hatred of the Cinnaloom dub because of the awkward dialogue, weird and poorly done sound effects, lackluster background music, and abysmal voice acting that is on the same level as bad fan dubs you find on YouTube. However, Terrence is one of the few actors from that dub that genuinely give good performances. His voice manages to capture his calm and manipulative nature as well as showing him as a terrifying. Not to mention, the accent just adds some more personality to the role.
Did you think I would surrender that easily? The Wizards of the Black Circle don't know what repentance is. You'll realize this when you spend eternity in the abyss!
For Dumont, just like with Ogron, I have to go back to his Cinnaloom voice, Simon Peacock. He's one of the few actors from the Cinnaloom dub whose performance actually sounds like he gives a and doesn't sound so amateurish. He gives the character a sense of menace while also giving him personality and capturing his cocky attitude. And again, the accent just really adds to the character.
We've heard so much about you. It's like we've known you forever.
With Anne again, since as I've mentioned before, representation in voice acting is important, I had to make sure to cast a black voice actor for the role. I wanted someone who could be menacing, but also show how he is the most chilled member of the group. So I ultimately decided to go with Kari Payton, who you will recognize for his role as Cyborg from Teen Titans. Granted, he probably wouldn't do his Cyborg voice, that would probably be weird, but he's actually pretty versatile and can give a more intimidating and evil sounding performance.
Now this is starting to sound interesting. Tell you what, I'm joining the team. If you need me, just let me know, cause there's nothing I'd rather do than take down Victor Von Doom.
The last member we have of this villainous quartet is Gantlos. He's always seemed to be the least distinct member of the group in terms of personality, so it was important to figure out someone who could help characterize him some more. I did decide to go with Unicorn War's choice, Liam O'Brien. Hey, this video is the last time you'll have to hear me copying choices from Unicorn War, and it's not my fault that he has really good taste in voice actors. Besides, I'm evil, so I'm not above cheating, or being the cause of you humans being the ones that are in charge of the world above, just so you could all inflict suffering onto each other. That's right. Anyway, Liam would manage to give him a balance between being smooth and angry, as opposed to always being angry like Gantlos is normally portrayed, but would still be able to make sure that he stands out enough from the other Wizards of the Black Circle.
Ridiculous. I will acquire the silver crystal and I'll rub it in your face.
Now we move on to the Earth Fairies, starting with the former queen and Roxy's long-lost mother, Morgana. For her, I decided to go with Susan Egan, who is best known for being the singing voice of Angel in Lady and the Tramp 2 Scamp's Adventure, and doing the voices of Lynn from Spirited Away, Rose Quartz from Steven Universe, and especially as Meg from Disney's Hercules. Her performance as Rose would be able to flawlessly capture how she is a strong leader that is flawed and has a quote-unquote mysterious past, while also being able to show her motherly nature.
Steven,
We can't both exist. I'm going to become half of you, and I need you to know that every moment you love being yourself. That's me. Loving you and loving being you, because you're going to be something extraordinary.
For Nebula, the only choice for her, in my opinion, is Eden Espinosa, who is best known for being the voice of Cassandra from Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure. I mean, first of all, Nebula and Cassandra have very similar looks. Secondly, Eden has proven that she can flawlessly capture a character that is a noble warrior that has an unhealthy desire for vengeance. Wait. Vengeance is supposed to be a bad thing? While also having a lot of depth. I mean, just listen to how perfect this is.
Helping myself, you might say. It's about time I helped myself, don't you think?
Next up we have Diana, and for her I went with Sally Richardson, who you will likely recognize as the voice of Detective Elisa Maza from Gargoyles. As I've mentioned, representation is important, though it's not entirely clear what Diana's race is, so Sally, who is half African American and half Native American, seemed like a good fit to me. But that's not the only reason I picked her. Her performance as Elisa showed that she can be gentle and kind, but also a force to be reckoned with that should never be underestimated and would totally kick your if you threaten nature. She just feels like a natural fit for Diana.
So 1,000 years ago, you were betrayed by the one human you trusted. Does anyone else know about you?
For Sibylla, I went with Carrie Karanen, who I know mainly as the voice of Mokuba from the 4Kids dub of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Alia from Miraculous Ladybug, although neither of those voices would be right for Sibylla, obviously. I feel like she would be able to portray how Sibylla is a compassionate but cold and distant character, as the fairy of justice that can't interfere with destiny and all that nonsense. This example is a far better display of what kind of performance she'd give.
The answers you seek are those you must discover for yourself, Saray. Answers of your own that you will not regret.
As for Aurora, the last of the major Earth Fairies, I went with Carrie Walgreen, who actually was the voice of Farragonda in the Nick dub, but she obviously wouldn't use that performance for the character because that wouldn't fit at all. I feel like the performance she gives as Charmcaster from the Ben 10 franchise would be perfect for the character. Aurora, while the youngest of the major fairies, is very deceptive and clever, which Carrie's role as Charmcaster would definitely capture with that aspect of the character, while also showing her softer side.
What a coincidence. I was just thinking about you. About killing you, to be specific.
Now we move on to the Residents of Gardenia, starting with Roxy's father, Klaus. For him, I went with Jeff Bennett, who is a voice acting legend that was a major staple of your childhood. He has too many credits to name, so go to his Wikipedia page to see all the roles he's had, because he has voiced so many different characters with different voices. Anyway, I feel like the voice he uses as Tramp in Lady and the Tramp 2 Scamp's Adventure would really suit him. He'd be able to show his parental warmth, his sternness and frustration, and his humorous side perfectly.
I guess there are some things you have to learn on your own. When you've had enough, our door is always open.
Next up we have Andy, Bloom's ex-boyfriend that she rekindles a friendship with and leads to a stupid jealousy storyline. But anyway, with this design I couldn't think of anyone better to voice him than Scott Menville, who you will recognize as the voice of Robin from Teen Titans. Andy's a pretty chill guy and I feel like Scott's voice would just fit the character like a glove.
Pizza. Sweet. You know, Robin's. The mask makes me feel cool too.
Next, we have Andy's friends, starting with Mark. This will be quick because I will be using Unicorn Awar's choice, Lucy and Dodge. I mean, the voice just suits his design so well, just listen.
Oh, hey there, Usagi. Sorry, I didn't see you come in. I'm all done with my shift. Do you feel like grabbing some coffee?
As for Rio, I went with Kari Payton. I mean, the character doesn't really have that many lines, so I thought just reusing Kari and having him do his cyborg voice would work.
Somebody's been working out.
For Jason Queen, I went with Jonathan Frakes, who you will recognize as the voice of David Xanatos from Gargoyles. He has such an appealing and soothing voice that would really suit this character, who seems shady to Ribbon, but Musa ends up trusting because he has a lot of charm to him.
You know the answer to that, Owen. Pay a man enough, and he'll walk barefoot into hell.
As for Mitzi's friends, I'm giving them both Easter egg voices. For Dharma, Kimberly Brooks, who I also cast as the voice of Tekna. Only for Dharma, I feel like the performance she gave as Stormy in the Nick dub would work, and it definitely would be far better suited for Dharma than it was for Stormy.
I'm not impressed, and you're wasting time.
And for Sally, Cassandra Lee Morris, who was the voice of Chimera from the 4Kids dub and the voice of Diaspro in Season 6 of the Nick dub.
At least, we're not from the realm of dork.
For R2, I went with Greg Sipes, who you will recognize as the voice of Beast Boy from Teen Titans, Kevin 11 from the Ben 10 franchise, and Caleb from Witch. His voice would just suit the character so well, probably because of how he's voiced a character that can turn into dogs and other animals.
Those are your tough guys? I'd like to see them last 1 second in a Skuldorian scream cage.
For Kiko and the fairy animals, when they are given the temporary ability to talk, this will be quick because they will all be keeping their voices from the Nick dub. The fairy animals all have voices that suit them and are individualized from each other enough to give them character, and D. Bradley Baker is perfect as Kiko.
I can finally talk to you, and you can actually hear me. When do we eat?
Also, any characters that are introduced in Season 4 that I don't mention in this video will be keeping their Nick voices. Now we move on to the 2 new Students of Alfea that play a big role in the first episode, both of whom will be getting Easter egg voices. Starting with the sweet cinnamon roll Alice, I went with Haven Pascal, who was the voice of Bloom in the DeviantArt dub. I feel like her higher pitched voice suits Alice and her innocent nature better than it does Bloom.
Headmistress, it can't be a coincidence that Kalshara is flying away after reading your book. And during all this.
And for the arrogant and bratty Clarice, I went with Amy Gross, who voiced Stella in the Nick dub. I feel like her higher pitched and nasally voice would be better suited to a character like Clarice rather than Stella.
Fine. If you don't want to be my friends anymore, I'll find some new ones. Friends who understand me.
And finally, we have the Ethereal Fairies. For the blue Ethereal Fairy, I went with Kat Susi, with the performance she gave as the Enchantress from Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas. Her voice sounds so mystical, which suits how the gift of destiny she gives the Winx is the gift of wisdom.
You have been deceived by your own cold heart. A curse upon your house and all within it.
For the green Ethereal Fairy, I went with Kathleen Barr, who is a veteran voice actress in the Barbie movies. Her voice sounds the warmest and most loving of the 3 voice actresses I picked, which suits how the gift of destiny she gives the Winx is the gift of heart.
For many years, all was well. Then Rothbard returned with his daughter, Odile. Now, master of the dark arts, he began taking over the forest piece by piece.
And lastly, for the orange Ethereal Fairy, who looks more yellow to me, I went with Jen Taylor, who most people will recognize as the voice of Salem from Ruby. Her voice out of the 3 voice actresses I picked is the most grim and dark, which suits how the gift of destiny she gives the Winx is the black gift.
Man, born from dust, was strong, wise, and resourceful. But he was born into an unforgiving world.
And there you have it. That is my fan cast for the voices of Season 4 of Winx Club. Next up will be Season 5, which will have a lot more characters than this. So what did you guys think of my choices? Do you agree with any of my choices? Who are your casting choices? Let me know down in the comments. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm the Wicked Merman from Under the Sea.